I'm very excited to be able to present on the mobile app development for ministry, and hopefully this will be a very useful time for everybody. I'm going to try and keep the presentation fairly quick so that we'll have plenty of time to discuss any questions or comments that anybody might have on how to actually get started and be able to do it. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to go into depth on how to actually develop apps in just this brief amount of time. So I do want to try and give an overview, though, of what's happening in the field of mobile app development, and hopefully you'll be able to take from that and be able to use it to get started inside your own ministry. I'm sorry, I keep getting messages that the mic's off, but it looks like it's happening here. Okay, I think we're presenting again. My background is that I have trained to be a minister. I've been a professional educator now for coming up on 20 years, teaching everything from kindergarten through graduate school of college. I got started in doing game development, interested in creating virtual environments for ministry and educational purposes. When I came to Abilene Christian University in 2007, they were just beginning a mobile ministry mobile initiative here, using the iPhone and eventually moving into the Apple targets, such as the iPad, and now looking at Android devices as well. I quickly saw that there was a need to be able to not just simply use these devices, but to actually be programming the devices and using them so that we could be the leaders in the field and not just simply turning over the programming to other people. So in 2010, last year, I started my own business called Burton's Media Group, and it was more just simply a website where I created tutorials for my students that were interested in learning how to do mobile app development. I love teaching my students how to do this, but there's only so many opportunities during a semester to be able to present the information to the students, and they come back and say, hey, how do you do that particular function, or add a splash screen to the app, or do something cool and exciting like that. So I started just simply recording the presentations, much like what you're experiencing right at this moment, and placing them on my website, and that has brought many opportunities to me that have been very, very exciting. So let's talk about where things have been. I'm a sci-fi nut. Got started in the early days of watching Star Trek, and I always was fascinated by the communicator and then the next generation's pads that they would use. And in the 80s and 60s, when these shows were on, that seemed like such distant future of technology. And yet here we now have very similar devices. As of today, we had over 600 schools and universities institute some type of tablet program as of this fall, and they were very excited to do this. We're still trying to figure out exactly what the iPad and the iPhone and the Kindle Fire and all these different devices are going to mean for education, and as we're just simply trying to figure out where the devices are going for the future as well. So we're looking at how can we use these different devices for ministry, just as we're trying to figure out in the educational sphere how to use them in education as well. Now, this is one of the most exciting things that I think is going to be happening in our future. We have seen the announcement that just a month or so ago that India is producing these tablet systems for $35 that are going to be made available through government subsidies to all college students in India. This is called the Ashka 2, which means sky in Indian. At least that's what I've been told. I'm not an expert in that area, so I can't exactly translate it. But this is going to be made available to university students in India this next year, and then the following year to all high school students in India. So this is a very exciting. We're suddenly going to have tablet devices in the hands of millions of students in India. Now, as a minister, as an app developer, this really gets me excited that suddenly I can be creating something that can serve and assist over 1 million people learn more about Christ and be able to use these devices effectively for educational purposes. So I've been telling my students about this here, and you should be aware of it as well. This is supposed to be available for purchase for $60 US sometime later this month. So we're still waiting to see exactly how that's going to be sold. But if you do a search for UB Slate 7 on the internet, you'll come up with the website for learning more about how this could be used. But that's a very exciting opportunity for doing app development and ministry potential as well. Now, when we start talking about what platforms we're going to develop applications in, it becomes very critical that we consider how these can be used. Apple got the whole ball rolling. The programming for the iOS systems, which includes both all of the iPad, the iPhone, as well as the iPod Touches, is done in Objective-C. Previously, that's the only real contender in the smartphone area was the BlackBerry, produced by RIM. That is a Java programming language to do the development. Until very recently, that was a closed market, and it was very difficult to create apps for it. RIM has lost so much market share, though, that they are now actively seeking developers to create third-party applications for it. Android is taking the world by storm, but one of the problems with Android is that it is such a diverse environment that you're creating for. The programming is done in a version of Java, but every device has its own little idiosyncrasies, so that creates a little bit of problem. Microsoft's been a little bit late getting into the game. They were working on a project and then canceled that project about 6 months before Apple announced the iPhone. I think they are still kicking themselves for that probably, but they are now trying to get back into that market developing the Windows-based smartphones. So we're starting to see some serious competition for the iOS system, but at this point, iOS by Apple is the dominant system. One of the challenges that we run into when we're creating applications is that each one has to be completely rewritten for each different platform. And as a developer, that does create some real challenges as we're going along. So let's talk about cross-platform development then, because with cross-platform development, we write an application one time and then it can be quickly and easily distributed to multiple platforms. So I can write an application one time for say the iPhone and the Android. The most popular, fastest way to do multiple cross-platform development is to make web-enabled or mobile-enabled web pages. And this is based upon HTML5 and JavaScript. The only downside to this from a ministry perspective is that it does require a continuous internet connection to be able to deliver that information to the end user. Other tools that are available for cross-platform development include Corona. I'm using Corona myself for teaching in my classes. It's got well over 100,000 developers out there and has had over 10 million app downloads as well. Corona allows for iOS and Android development as well as the new Kindle Fire. The development environment is very quick. I've been now using Corona for a little over a year and a half, and generally what I've found from both my students and my own personal experience is what it would take me about a month to develop for the Apple iPhone, I can do in about a week using Corona, and also be able to instantly deploy it then to Android without having to reprogram it. The same is also true for Appcelerator, Rhodes, and PhoneGap. They're also cross-platform development. Each one is very specific. I went ahead and went with the Corona environment because it does allow for game development and app development, which students find very entertaining, users find very entertaining. Appcelerator is more geared towards just simply creating utility apps or information apps instead of game development. Rhodes, as I said, is open source, kind of. They have paid systems on there as well. And PhoneGap is basically an HTML tool that allows you to take web pages and convert them into apps that can then be deployed to multiple devices. Sorry about the audio. What can be done with the app development? One of the most fascinating and interesting things that is happening right now inside the environment is creating electronic books for these mobile devices. There's several that are available now on the App Store. One great example is the 365 Bible Promises for Little Hearts, which is actually an ebook created on there with lots of graphics and very friendly. One of the biggest, most exciting areas that a lot of app developers are just starting to get into is the interactive story. And that's taking a story and making it interactive, which might seem a little redundant, but it's actually going in there and taking, say, a story such as Noah's Ark and go in there and have the people participate. They might be challenging or helping the animals find their way to the ark, and have the story read to them. They can change the color of participants' clothing, or actually interact with the book itself, change how the story is being played out, or be able to create new and interesting things. And of course, finally, there's the creation of apps themselves, specialized systems that can do a variety of different tools, whether that's social media communications, connecting to some huge database, either locally on the device or in a remote location, or just simply utilities that help people find things. I was at a ministry presentation about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago in Los Angeles, and I was able to use my Bible app on my iPhone to be able to follow along without having to bring my Bible to the conference itself. So that created a neat opportunity to show what could be done with the devices to other participants at the conference, as well as have 5 different translations available to me instantaneously, and be able to look at how those different translations could be used inside the environment. So that brings up the question, how do you make your own app? Well, first of all, you have to decide who is your target audience. Is this being geared towards people that are using tablet devices? Is it being geared towards the smartphones? Is it geared towards other types of devices that are available out there? And what's the age group? What's the interest level? And what's the usage of these types of devices inside that environment? Are you going to make this app free for use? Is it going to be adware, popping up advertisements to help pay for it? Is it going to be a subscription-based, or is it going to be a paid app? I really think that Apple's probably done a huge disservice to the app developer community by encouraging the 99-cent app project. There's so many free and very cheap, poorly done apps out there. It really has done a disservice to the entire app development community, making it look like the quality apps aren't out there. It is rather expensive to create a quality app in time and resources, so you do need to keep that in mind. Of course, ministry focus, we usually try to focus on the free side of things to help get it into people's hands, and that also presents another set of challenges. Usually we want to create a mock-up of the app when you're starting to design your own app, and by a mock-up I mean getting out a plain old sheet of paper, or if you are more digitally inclined, Photoshop or some other graphic editor, and designing what each screen of the app is going to look like. What is going to be the step-through process of the app? How are they going to interact within that environment? So it's always a good idea to create a mock-up of the app, especially if no matter whether you're the one actually designing and coding the app, or if you're trying to bring other people into it. As they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and this is definitely a situation where creating a mock-up of the app is going to be a huge help in communicating what you're trying to create and who your target audience is. I always encourage my students to work in small teams. While it is possible for one person to create a quality app, it's going to quadruple the amount of time that it does take. Whereas if you've got someone that can work on the graphics, someone else that can work on sound and music, and then another person that's doing the actual programming side of things, you're going to create an app that is much higher quality, much quicker, and it's going to be available much more quickly to your end user. One of the things that you do have to consider is Apple Store requirements if you're planning on distributing the app through iTunes. They are very strict on what can and cannot be used. I was recently on a plane flight back from England from a conference and was sitting next to a nice gentleman, and we started talking, and he was asking about app development, and he was sharing that he had a friend who had created an application that was supposed to be an assistance for helping people that were homosexual in bent become non-homosexual or straight and join regular life again. And that app had been rejected by the iTunes Store. Apple has a very humanistic approach to how the app should be done, and the way that they look at that particular type of app is that if they allow your app to go in there, then they also have to allow homosexual individuals that make an app on how to stop being a Christian be admitted as well, which of course would make many of us very angry. So they take the approach that trying to be non-offensive in their apps as possible, going for the largest public sector to be able to sell to as possible. The challenges of creating the app is finding quality programmers and artists. There are tons and tons of ideas out there. I, on average, receive 1 to 2 emails per week for people looking for help in creating applications. The challenge is finding people that can complete an app with quality, create quality graphics that go with it, and how to do it. After you've got an app created, distributed to the stores, you are competing with several million other apps out there. How do you get it out there to be known that it is being done or that it is available? So marketing your app also becomes a very critical part. Of course, with email distributions, being able to let our churches know that the app is available, that does allow us to, we've got an inside scoop on being able to help with the marketing of our apps, which can be a very nice thing. You do need to consider that once an app is created, it is not done. There will be bugs found in the app, and so changes will need to be done. Apple has been updating and changing the iOS operating system approximately every 9 months, and every time that that is done, the app has to be reprogrammed, recalculated, and resubmitted for updating to those new features. So just because an app's been created once, you cannot create it once and leave it alone. You've got to bring your programmers back in and have the app redone for the newest version if you want it to stay live on the iTunes Store or the Google stores. I do have a limited number of students each semester that are available to help with app creation. It depends on how much time they have, whether they've been hired by as interns or things like that. Currently, I've got 15 students that are finishing up the semester and creating projects. Next semester, I'm expecting 12 to 15 students as well. So that seems to be the norm per semester. I'm producing about 15 to 20 students that are able to make apps per semester that have an understanding of the need for creating Christian-oriented, ministry-oriented applications as well. Now, what I'm using is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going with the Corona operating system that is produced by Ants Mobile. They're located in San Francisco, California. What I have found with the Corona software is that it does have a really great support community. I chose to go with the Corona software because of its ability to be able to create games and apps at the same time. You're able to publish for iPhone, iPad, Android devices, Kindle Fire, Barnes & Noble's Nook, Droids, and now, as of February of this coming year, you're going to be able to publish for Macintosh or PC desktop as well. So it's a very versatile creation environment. They are working on adding continuously to new environments as well. It wouldn't surprise me in the future that we begin to see Windows and BlackBerry support as well. So over the 3 years that the organization's been in existence, it's continuing to expand very quickly. The app creation time, as I mentioned earlier, is a fraction of the time it would take to create for either Android or iOS natively, and it has the added benefit that you are able to then publish to a multitude of platforms very quickly. They also have tools now built into the operating system that tell you very quickly and easily if it's going to be accepted, if it meets the requirements of the Apple iTunes Store without actually having submitted to it. So some very nice tools there. It has built-in physics so that you can do basic physics examples of things falling, and which makes game development much, much easier. And as of just a few weeks ago, it now has built-in ebook tools for being able to create ebooks quickly and easily. So I was so excited by this. I've been using, as I mentioned, Corona for about 1.5 years. Last fall, I started looking for curriculum that could, last spring, I started looking for curriculum that I could use for teaching Corona in the classroom, and I realized that there wasn't really anything available. So I decided, well, then I'll write the book. And that's how I spent my summer and really the last 6 months, and I'm currently writing the final chapter of the book. It is available for early release, and it's selling quite well and being used by universities and high schools all around the world now. So not to self-promote too much there, but it is has been well accepted by the community. That concludes the presentation, and hopefully that'll leave a few minutes that I can answer any questions or be able to help people in any way.
Comments, questions? The guy wrote the book. Well, how do you get the book? Okay, I think if you go to that burtonsmediagroup.com/books, and you just go to his website. Is the only place that your book is available right now on your website, Brian?
Yes. It's only available, as soon as I finish the book, I'm going to make it available through Amazon and Barnes & Nobles and all the normal distributions. It's currently only available as an early release, but I had so many people demanding to use the book once I announced that it was coming that I went ahead and made it available as an early release.
All right, thank you. Other questions, comments?
I see that there's a question about have I used J2ME. Yes, I've used that a little bit. Actually, I teach my students how to use it when we're starting our second course in mobile application development, because I do want them to be exposed to both the Xcode and J2ME environment. I do prefer using Corona just because it is a faster development environment over J2ME, and it does allow me to deploy to multiple environments quickly and easily. In my opinion, I think that is going to be the future of app development, is using HTML5, but we're still 3 or 4 years out from seeing that as the dominant tool for being there. I'm encouraging my students and myself staying up to date on what's happening with HTML5. There's no question that it's going to be the dominant force, but we're still a few years out on that. That's my opinion, at least.
Brian, this is Clyde Jaber. Like a year ago, somebody said, oh, look, go to this website, go through this thing, and it'll create the app for your website or from your website, sort of an open source freeware thing. I never figured that thing out. What value do those things have in your opinion?
Well, Clyde, I think you answered your own question. If the average user can't use them to make the app, then it has very limited resources. It's a neat and nifty, looks really cool type thing, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Okay, so you're not familiar. I was just wondering if they get a lot of traction. I mean, again, my attempt was unsuccessful.
That's been my experience as well. When I've gone to try out those types of tools that plug and play, drag and drop, they're just not there yet. We may see them develop in sophistication over the next couple of years and become useful tools. But that's been something in the computer science field that we've been trying to get to for over 20 years, and we're still not there yet. Brad Rhodes has a comment that there's a very good tool that will take an RSS feed and generate a mobile app from it, and it works great. Brad, if you could post the URL for that, share it with everybody, that'd be great.
Or better still, Brad, if you can post it into the Google Doc where we're doing the notes, that's where there's more access to those.
Is Corona using an interpretive layer to be able to create the builds for the different platforms? Could you just tell us a little bit more about how it works?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Yes, Corona uses an interpretive layer. The programming is actually done in a Lua script language, and then it interprets that and changes it into the native code language for the individual device. So it makes it into C code for the iOS devices, Java for Android devices, and makes all of the different platforms happy.
Okay. So you wouldn't necessarily see performance degradation because you could, say, for example, use the interpretive layer for animations and then use native scripting for UI type of stuff?
That's exactly right. I've seen no real degradation. Generally, the games that I've created using the Corona software run at 30 frames per second, which on a mobile device is a great performance without any kind of degradation problems. And we got a hand raised. Murray?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
The question is there a central exchange for ideas on which apps will be needed for best discipleship?
That's an excellent question. I don't know. Jay, Clyde, do you have anything on that?
Great question. That's probably one of those things we'll have to identify as just an active need, and start finding out who can bring resources to that need.
Sorry, I couldn't hear anything. The audio was totally absent.
My quick thought on that one was that, I guess those are the kinds of questions that we as a mobile ministry forum would like to try to address. But at this point, I am not aware of anybody who's done anything in that particular realm. Brian, thank you very, very, very much.
I'm happy to do so, and if anybody has any ministry ideas, I think Murray's brought up a very good point. We need a resource to brainstorm ministry type ideas like this. Please, I'd like to be kept in the loop on that and see if I can be able to bring students and contribute to such an effort.
All right, and I will just mention for, I don't know, whoever may not have heard last night, we kind of have an active Google Doc that we started yesterday that is what we're describing as a gap analysis. So these are the kinds of things that we want to identify, like what's missing, what's needed, and then after we can identify them, we can begin to match, hopefully, resources or ideas with those. So if you are able to go to that Google Doc, if you're able to go to our notes page, there's a link to it, and I guess that's all I've got there for now. But that is the kind of stuff that we want to collaboratively try to address. So thank you for bringing that up, Murray.